I met Rhonda Hilyer on an ill-fated political campaign many, many years ago when she represented labor and I, a corporate executive at the time, represented business. In the years since, we evolved professionally. Convinced that management and labor should be able to find common ground by focusing on individuals' communication styles, Rhonda evolved from her role as president of the Hotel and Restaurant Employees Union to that of a mediator and a visionary. As CEO of Agreement Dynamics and creator of Success Signals, the communication style training you'll experience today, Rhonda assists a variety of businesses, government, nonprofits, including business, Boeing, Microsoft, Seattle Police Department, City of LA, many others. And her training books also help people navigate their personal relationships. When I was CEO of, well, I'll tell you that one first. I'll tell you the business one second. A year ago, my sister and her boyfriend were about to break up. And I gave them a copy of Rhonda's book, Success Signals, and said, why don't you just look it over together? And they spent an afternoon going through the book together, and they realized that their issues were, they derived from their conflicting communication styles. So and they're doing great. They rebooted, they're doing great. When I was CEO of Habitat for Humanity, we were having conflict in the workplace, brought in a Success Signals trainer, thanks to Home Street Bank. We were very skeptical at first, but in the weeks and months that followed, we realized it totally worked. It made a huge impact on us. And then finally, for the past 7 years, I've taught leadership at the UW. On the second class of every quarter, someone comes in and trains us in Success Signals. And years after graduation, my students write me saying that this communication style training has proven the most valuable for them navigating issues in the workplace and in their personal relationships. So it's my honor and my privilege to introduce to you a visionary and a character, Rhonda Hilyer.
Thank you, Dorothy. Friend, mentor, and colleague in many adventures of which we will not speak today. So, in just a moment, you are going to see a demonstration of our 4 primary communication styles. And why does this really matter? Well, studies show that style, or how we actually send our message, rather than what that message is initially, is the door opener to persuasion, conflict resolution, and relationship success. Now, all of us in this room are a blend of all of the 4 styles you're about to see depicted. However, most of us have 1 or 2 styles that we tend to use more often or more dominantly, and it's helpful to understand that. And what you're about to see are real-life examples of each style under stress. And these examples have been authenticated as of last week by 911 operators in the greater Seattle area. So these are not made up, these are real situations. So let me get in costume here. Now, our first example is going to be of the Brown style, and Paula Houston is going to be our Brown. 911, what's your emergency?
There's a guy swinging a machete.
What's your location?
QFC Wallingford.
What's the address?
45th Street.
Do you know the cross street?
No, just get over here now. I'm going to take this guy out myself.
Ma'am, did you know that this is a recorded line? All right, there you go. You got the Brown. Woohoo. Okay, next. Applause optional because they're going to be doing more later. Okay. Next, doing the blue is Dorothy Bullitt. 911, what's your emergency?
Hello, operator. How are you today?
Ma'am, what's your emergency?
Well, I don't want to get anyone into trouble.
What's going on?
This young man with a machete seems very upset, and now he's kind of swinging it around, Maybe someone could talk to him to find out.
Ma'am, what's your location?
Oh gosh, it's a QFC. I'm so sorry to make your job harder. We're new to Seattle, and this isn't our neighborhood.
Ma'am, please hand the phone to a cashier. All right. So next, we will move on to the green depiction by Jenny Ratliff. 911, what's your emergency?
Whether or not this is an actual emergency remains to be seen. It could be a theatrical stunt, a prank, or any number of...
Ma'am, what's your emergency?
Approximately 12 feet north of checkout stand number 3 in the frozen food aisle, there's a 20 to 30-year-old Caucasian male who appears to be 6 foot tall, wearing a cape and mask. He also has a machete in his left hand. He's making counterclockwise circular motions with the machete, which looks like some type of metal. He also has...
Ma'am, what store and location?
Do you want the precise address, which I will have to Google, or do you want the cross streets on the main entrance or the side of the store?
Ma'am, what's the name of the store and the cross streets?
Oh, let me double check that.
And there you have it, our green. Okay, next, playing the red part will be Mark Wright. 911, what's your emergency?
Well, we're all either freaking dead or Halloween has come early.
What's happening?
Well, who the hell knows? I mean, there's a big Herkin guy going crazy ninja-like in the QFC. Well, come to think of it, we are in the U district, and it's...
What's he doing?
Besides the blood-curdling screams, he's got this machete, and he's kind of lunging, sort of ADHD squared, if you get my meaning.
What's your location?
Well, I'm hiding in the wine section right now. And I'm getting ready to have a little liquid courage.
Sir, are you still there? And there you have it, the red. All right. And by the way, they're not necessarily playing their first style. This is truly adaptation. Okay, so, oh, sorry, I don't mean to be that. So, each of these 4 examples, as mentioned, are styles under stress. And as you probably know, whenever we're under stress or pressure, we tend to communicate more intensely in whatever style we're in at the time. But what about each of you? Well, the good news is, no matter what your style, you can be successful. And the key, because there are no bad styles, but the key here, in order to be persuasive, is to understand our style and how to use our style with others who may be the same or different than we are. So, to help do that, each of you has a set of 4 colored cards that should be in your, by your chair. On your chair, near your chair. If you would, pull out these cards and just take a moment to scan the fronts as I'm holding up. The backs have paragraphs, which you're more than welcome to read later, but if you would scan the fronts, and as you do, recognize that in terms of style, we're all a blend of all of the information on all 4 cards. However, most of us have certain preferences, habits, or tendencies. So again, if you would, very quickly, put these cards in order, putting the card on top that you think is more like you more of the time, and the card on the bottom that's least like you. So you're going to do top to bottom, and try to do it quickly because it's not a cosmic decision. You can change your mind later.
The browns are done. The greens are reading the wrong side.
Okay, how we doing? Getting there? Let's do a quick check. How many of you at this point have the blue card on top? Would you raise your hand? All right, very good. How about the brown card? Yes. The green card? All right. And the red? Oh, this is wonderful. We have style diversity right in this room. All the styles represented. So I'm...
What did you say? Red.
All right. Okay, so this is going to be really quick, but I'm going to just briefly talk about what The characteristics of each dominant style are remembering we're all a blend. And then we're going to see a couple demonstrations of how to use this. So, blue, and we all have blue in our style, is the best at reading people. They can walk into a room before anyone says a word. They've got a sense about whether people are relaxed or whether they're tense. They're very intuitive and inclusive decision makers. They can make decisions on the facts, but they also make decisions based on how people are affected. Great team builders, relationship focused. So I'm going to tell you a story about a great blue here in the city of Seattle. When Norm Rice was mayor of Seattle, he did this exercise, and we had a big negotiation involving the cities and water districts throughout the region about how to get new water and who controls it and a lot of these issues. Well, the city of Bellevue in Seattle had been in court over litigating these issues for a decade. And this negotiation was quite difficult. We were in the mayor's conference room one day, and a mayor from another town stood up and said, you know what, this is not working. We need to go back to court. So as people were packing up, I remember that Norm Rice stood up and he said, you know, I want to thank all of you for all that you've tried to do here. And he said, Mr. Mayor, you're right. I have no idea how we're going to do this because this is hard. But he said, I do know one thing. We're the leaders of this region. And if, you know, we go back to court, 10 years from now, other people will be sitting in these chairs and they'll have a bigger problem to solve. He said, you know what? I'm going to clear my calendar. If you'll stay with me, I'll stay here all day, the rest of the week, next week, so we can work this out together. Now, out of that, everyone sat back down, and out of that was born a whole new paradigm for how to get water. And the Cascade Water Alliance, which is still operational today, was one of the great achievements. So blue-style communicators, and we all have blue, they bridge those gaps between people. Now, sometimes, though, they're misunderstood. How might they be misunderstood? Well, what is this telling you? Soft, warm, and fuzzy. So sometimes people think because those of us with a lot of blue are very kind and sensitive on the outside, that means we're soft on the inside. Not so. Some of the toughest people you're ever going to want to meet are blue. Because this is a bear, after all, is it not? Yeah. So, Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. So I say, let's hear it for the blues. What do you say? Woohoo! Now, how about those with a lot of brown? We all have brown. The most action-oriented, bottom-line, achievement-focused of all the styles, and the most decisive. In fact, those of you with brown on top, unless green is your second card, you can make a decision with or without the facts, no problem, right? Yeah, just because the brown motto is just do it. Yeah. So my daughter, who's now 23, is a triple brown. And when, good kid, when she was about 5, she started answering the telephone and she would say, what do you want? I said, Brittany, honey, you need to say hello. She goes, why? I said, well, it's a custom, a greeting. And she says, Mom, don't you think I'm wasting people's time? See, time is critical from the brown perspective. In fact, if you are late to a meeting with a dominant brown, that is a sign of disrespect. So, important to know. Brown-style communicators like sayings. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Read my lips. What part of no don't you understand? Fish or cut bait. Bring it on. They like sayings because they're short, to the point. Now, unlike the blues, they're not as likely to emote, to hug you. Right, Paula, in a meeting? No. So how do they show their feelings? Through action. Very action-oriented. So some of you know of Betty Tisdale, who lives in Lower Queen Anne in her 80s. And Betty, as you know, helped evacuate over 200 orphans from a compound outside of Saigon during the fall of Saigon. She spent months trying to get these kids out. Everywhere she went, she heard no, 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 no. But Browns are persistent. One day she gets through to the Secretary of the Army. He says, I'm sorry, Mrs. Tisdale, we don't even have enough airplanes for our military. But do you think Betty stopped there? No. She called the Secretary of the Army's mother. Now, do you think she got her planes? Do you think he was ticked off? Do you think she cared? No, right on. But she does care, and that's the point, isn't it? So let's hear it for the Browns. Yeah. Woo. Now, how about the green style? The most perfectionistic in word and deed. And they're going to want to know, what's the source of this? They're going to want to have documentation and a chance to really understand it. And green style communicators prefer to be communicated with factually, accurately, logically, unemotionally, and literally. What does literal mean? Precise. So if I say to you, I'll get back to you in a couple of hours, what does that mean to a green? 2 hours. What if I get back in 6 hours? I'm late. So they're very literal, and you will lose credibility with the green if you exaggerate or overgeneralize. So for example, if you say, everyone says morale sucks, what does the green style communicator say? Who's everyone? How do you know that, right? I think Greens invented quality control, and airplanes fly in large measure because of it. And I want to tell you a story about how powerful the green is. So I fly into Burbank, California a lot. And last summer I'm flying in, and all of a sudden the wings flip this way, and then they flip that way. Like, what? So I'm waiting for the pilot to do what? Explain. But this pilot was not talking green. He comes on and he goes, well, that was fun, wasn't it, folks? I'm like, what? No explanation, nothing. Well, a few months later, I'm flying into Burbank, same thing happens. Now this pilot is speaking green. And he says, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to assure you there's no safety issue at this time. We have just encountered a phenomenon known as wake turbulence. And in layman's terms, this is when the airstream of one aircraft gets too close to that of another, and it can flip or rock the wings. He said, now as you know, in Burbank, where we will be landing, you will be going down a ramp. I will be standing at the bottom of that ramp, so if you would like further information about wake turbulence, I will be available. So, really, really valuable. I was loving that. Let's hear it for the Greens. All right, all right. And how about the Reds? Yeah. So all of you have red in your style. Some of you are in denial of this, and studies show that the red in us is the best to access in a crisis. Why? Well, because red-style communicators think well on their feet. They're flexible, they're risk takers, they're idea generators, they're willing to try things, and they're focused in the crisis. They may fall apart after the crisis, but during the crisis, they get an adrenaline rush that really focuses them. Now, red-style communicators are very visionary. Some people say you have visions, but think for a moment, flight. For years, people were ridiculed when they said human flight was possible. Red people don't care. They got a vision, and there are change agents. How about Martin Luther King Jr.? What was his most famous speech? I have a dream. A visionary, a change agent. Very red. And red-style communicators often are expressive, and they use language flamboyantly, provocatively. So for example, if you say, you know, are you hungry? They're not hungry, they're starving. And provocatively, if you say, well, is the air conditioning, is it a little chilly in here? Yeah, man, I'm freezing my ass off. Provocative, right? Red-style communicators also don't see conflict as a negative. Conflict can do what? Spark creativity. You know, when all think alike, no one thinks. But if we're sparring, new ideas come forth. And so oftentimes we create when we otherwise would not. So there's a lot more about this, but let's hear it for the Reds. Woohoo! Now, while we don't have time to explore our blends today, we can look at one way to use this information, and that is translating your dominant style into that of those who would be receiving your message is very powerful at not only persuasion, but preventing conflicts. So we're going to see some demonstrations of this. First, we're going to see a workplace example between our brown and our blue, Paula and Dorothy. And you're going to see the conflict piece first.
Okay, knock, knock, knock.
Come in.
Have you got a minute, Paula? Because we've got a problem.
What is it?
Our overtime is going through the roof. I think it's because morale is so low. I mean, people are seriously depressed. Nobody even wants to come to work, much less do what it takes to get done on time.
What do you want me to do about it?
If you could just understand what we're all going through. I mean, everyone has been working like dogs for the last 6 months with no pats on the back. We all feel like no one cares. It's just so hard. I mean, are you feeling my pain?
What do you think this is, Dorothy? A therapy session? I mean, this is a job, a J-O-B. You ought to know that. You're a supervisor. You're paid to work here. And if you and everybody else around here can't get it together, I'll find someone who can. We've all got problems. Just don't bring them to work.
We'll see. We'll see who leaves around here.
All right, you go. So, now what happened here? What happened here? Okay, Dorothy, our blue, she is coming in to try to persuade her boss to give employees a sense of value while they're going through stress. Isn't that right? However, Dorothy, well-intentioned, is coming in and presenting this with emotion. And it sounds to her boss like she's simply whining. That creates stress in the brown, which causes the brown to go deeper in the brown, which makes Dorothy think the brown is heartless, doesn't care. So that stresses her out. So she goes deeper in the blue, and there's just this big disconnect. So now we're going to see Dorothy, who initiated the conversation, using the tool of translating her blue into the brown language. And let's see what a difference it makes.
Knock, knock, knock.
Come in.
Have you got a minute, Paula? Because we've got a problem.
What is it?
Our overtime is going through the roof. I've got a couple of ideas on how to fix it. Is this a good time to run it by you?
Yeah, okay.
Because we've been understaffed for the last 6 months during our busy season, people are getting burned out and morale has taken a nosedive. It's affecting productivity. There are 2 things that will turn this around. One I can do, but the other has to come from you.
What do you mean?
First, I've stepped up the hiring and training process, and I can let the employees know that we'll be fully staffed in another 2 months. In the meantime, you've got to help me give them some pats on the back.
Oh, no. You know I don't do that touchy-feely kumbaya stuff.
I know, Paula, and I'm not asking you to be touchy-feely. That's what you've got me for, right?
Right.
You're the department director, and people respect you, Paula. They need to know that you respect them and the extra effort they've put out. I only need a few minutes of your time at the next staff meeting.
Okay, what do you want me to do?
I'll send you a memo spelling it out, but basically, I want you to give them a pep talk and express your appreciation for their hard work, if you can be sincere.
Of course I can be sincere. I may be hard-nosed, but that doesn't mean I care about our employees.
I don't. Freudian slip. Okay, keep going.
Of course I can be sincere. I may be hard-nosed, but that doesn't mean I don't care about our employees. They're one hell of a crew, second to none.
That's exactly what I want you to say.
Okay, you've got it.
All right. Woo-hoo. So in this situation, we saw Dorothy come in, be very concrete, did we not? She said, we got a problem. There's 2 things that can fix it. One I can do, the other I need from you. And she makes it easy. When the boss says, well, what do you want me to do? Well, I'll send you a memo spelling it out. So it's very much about problem solving, because the mantra of the brown is don't bring me a problem unless you bring me a solution. And now, was Dorothy manipulative in this situation? Some would say yes. Now, but if you look up the word manipulate, it isn't necessarily a negative. I mean, did she trick her? No. All she did was translate her message a little more into the brown language, and then it was better understood, better received. So now we're going to look at a personal situation, a couple, and we will see the green and the red couple first having a conflict.
I've been thinking about our vacation to Europe, and I got some information on sites we might want to see. We'll need to sign up soon because some of these are only accessible by tours that get booked in advance. What do you think?
Hey, I think it's a vacation, not a boot camp. I want to do whatever we feel like when we get there.
That's fine, but if we don't plan ahead and make some choices now, we'll miss out on a lot of things. I mean, why go to Europe if you're just going to hang out? Go lie on a beach somewhere if that's what you want.
Well, maybe I will if that's what it takes to have a real vacation. Let's be spontaneous. Check out what's available when we get there and then choose. So we miss out on a few things. Big deal.
It is a big deal. We've been saving and planning for this vacation for a long time.
You mean you've been planning for a long time? I'm sure you've already programmed an itinerary on your phone for every waking moment of our trip.
Well, if someone around here didn't plan and save, I might add, we'd never do anything.
Well, what's that supposed to mean? Are you going to start lecturing me about money again?
We'll discuss this when you're willing to be rational.
The hell we will. We'll discuss it now. How come you always walk out when I try to explain my side of things?
Yeah. Woo! All right. So this is a classic, is it not? Where the logical green is trying to explain through rational reasons to the red why they should plan the vacation. But from the red perspective, vacation is about freedom. I go to work every day, I have a set schedule, I have things I'm required to do. So to the red, I don't want to be programmed through a vacation. The more that the green tries to give the logical reasons, the more the red feels this is about confinement. And so they both become deeper in their styles, more intense, and they become more irritable to the other. So in this case, our green initiated, and she is going to use the tool of speaking a little bit of the red language to her partner.
I've been thinking about our vacation to Europe, and I've got some information on sites we might want to see. We'll need to sign up soon because some of these are only accessible by tours that get booked in advance. What do you think?
Hey, I think it's a vacation, not a boot camp. I want to do whatever I feel like when I get there.
Okay, sweetheart. I think I'm hearing you. You want to have maximum flexibility to do what you want in the moment. Is that right?
You got it. I want to go with the flow. Sometimes I want to chill out, sometimes sightsee. Take it as it comes.
Okay, I'm willing to loosen up a little, but you know me, I need to have some things figured out. I can relax, have fun, and even be spontaneous if I do some advanced planning.
I know, you're the master of planned spontaneity.
You're right. I could get pretty wild with Google Maps and my iPhone. Seriously, though, there are a few things I don't want to miss. Should I just book myself on some tours and you can come if you want, and there's space available, or would you like to choose a couple now that you don't want to miss?
Well, I like both of your ideas. How about I look at those brochures and maybe pick out a few things I really do want to do, and maybe you can book them in advance. Some things, though, you might not want to do, and I might opt out as well, so we can do our own thing.
Sounds good to me. I'd love to do some tours with you, but I don't mind leaving others open so that you can decide to go or not.
Hey, all right, I think this is going to be a great vacation.
Ah, all right, thank you. So we saw the green show a little humor, give some options. Make it so, you want to do this, right? You want to do that? Not a lot of rational reasons, is that right? And so then the red's willing to loosen up, willing to look at some ideas and possibly book some tours. So this is the door opener to persuasion. And how do we know what style a person is in? So we can't translate our message. Well, we don't want to stereotype anybody because, as an example, Dorothy is pretty much equal in her dominant style, which is blue and brown. And lately, this last week when I've been dealing with you, you've been so flippin' green. I mean, she has this plan right down to the second. Very important, though, right? So we don't want to presume, what a person's style is at any given moment. So how do we know? Well, there's 3 ways. I don't have time to go into all of them, but here's a really quick one. Just hone your observation skills. As an example, go to any public place. Go to the grocery store. When you're in the line, watch the people in front of you. So you're at the grocery store. Person in front of you is chatting with the cashier. Hey, how you doing? What style are they in? Blue. Another person, they are self-bagging their groceries even though it's not a self-bag store. They're not talking, they got their debit card at the ready. They're brown. Someone else, now they have a map of the store and they have thought it out. So the cold items are separated from the hot items. The heavy stuff is done first, so it's not going to squish the bread. They've thoughtfully put it on the belt. Green. And of course, the red, they're right up there, ready to check out, and they go, oh shoot, where's the wine? I'll be right back. Very easy sometimes to pick out those styles, is it not? So there's so much more to this, and it actually is something that can be used in a variety of ways. As an example, worked with a number of SWAT teams, one of them at the Kent Police Department, and they've literally used this to talk down people from shooting others, domestic violence incidences. So there's a lot of applications. And I'm going to stop now because we do have a few minutes left. Thank you to Dorothy for keeping us right on schedule. To Paula for being the brown. To Jenny the green and Mark the red. Thank you. And we have a couple minutes if you have any questions or comments. Yes, sir.
I'm wondering how you identify yourself in real life.
I couldn't hear that. Say that. Self-identify. Okay. Self-identify, yeah.
I actually am mostly brown with equal parts blue and green and almost no red.
I'm very strong brown, very strong blue, identical, tested identically, and really work on my green and have way less red.
I'm like Dorothy, I'm brown and blue, but I'm also green and red because I'm fairly even in the styles, and I find it helpful in a lot of situations.
So when I first went through the training with Rhonda, I was like, oh my God, why didn't somebody tell me this when I was 18? I've been offended for the last 40 years. And I'm laughing because my brother Craig over here is a serious brown. I'm a serious blue. And let me tell you a really quick story. He was the brother that would come over to Pullman and pick me up, drive through the middle of the night. I had no car. He picked me up and drove me back here. So that was sort of his language of love, of do something. Mine is very different. It's all about touchy-feely, and you hurt my feelings. So, yeah, I have a lot of red, too.
All right. One more, another
Steve
question?
has a question. So I'm just curious, at what age do we start to get this, the style that we have ultimately as our dominant style?
Thank you. Social scientists disagree about that. Some maintain that style is a part of our genetic makeup, and others say, well, we are gradually, by the age 5, our environment shapes that. And then there's a third school of thought, which is, well, it's a little bit of both. We have some genetic tendencies and also environmental influences. What we do know for sure is at least by age 5, we all have a dominant style blend, and it will be with us for the rest of our lives.
Hi, I have a quick question. How culturally bounded is this? Have you worked with other nationalities, other cultures with this coding of communications? And what have you found if you have done that? It's just fascinating.
Yes, we've worked with cultures really all over the world. And interestingly, every style is represented, but not necessarily as equally in the United States, because we are truly a melting pot. And somewhere between 22 and 27% of each style is represented here in this country. However, you go to Japan as an example, and you will find extremely low red in the population. And that may be cultural, I don't know. It was interesting to me doing a lot of work in the UK several years ago, and you have all styles represented, but you had more of a predominance of the red, blue, blue, red in Ireland, and in England, more of a predominance of the brown, green, green, brown. And when you think about that, you have political and religious and historical conflicts, and then you have some style conflicts that have also played into that. So while each style is represented, cultures do sometimes shape the style expectations, and we find this in companies. What style is Boeing? Green-brown, generally, right? And I work with a company in Mukilteo that does the Star Wars sets. Red, they're red-blue. Very different corporate environments.
Rhonda, Rotary has an equal time provision. This is Mark's brother, Craig.
Yay.
I'm just curious how similar this is, or an evolution of Myers-Briggs. If you can, some of us are familiar with that. If you can help us understand that, that'd be great.
Yeah, Myers-Briggs is a little bit different than this. Myers-Briggs is more of a medical model, and if you think of these different tools like maps, if you wanted to go somewhere in the city of Seattle, maybe a map of the state of Washington would not be helpful. But if you wanted to drive across to Yakima, then that map would be, so they're a little bit different. This is not as much personality-based as it is about how we present ourselves. Because when you get into personality and other aspects, you get into values. So as an example, brown, people who have done the brown, who are high in the brown, you've got all different types of people. For example, Barack Obama, brown and green pretty much. And Rudy Giuliani, very brown, brown-red. Sarah Palin, another one, brown-red. John McCain, brown-red. George W. Bush, brown-red. But these are very different people politically and in other ways as well. Isn't that right?
Just one last question here.
I test my students Myers-Briggs and also the communication styles, and they're people who are introverts, who are red, and there are extroverts who are green, and they're so that I've seen a lot of contrast through that.
Okay, last question.
Yes, sir.
Is it true that opposite styles attract? And if so, over time, do the opposite styles lead to compatibility or problems?
Oh, that's a great question. So, yeah, hold up your last card, everybody, if you would. Last card. That's your opposite. And that's the person that on the style level, you're most likely to be attracted to, but over time, you're most likely to be irritated by. And so, how do you keep the relationship going oftentimes when we're attracted to our style opposite? Well, that's where this is about diversity. We want to build understanding about the positives of all the styles, and we want to build respect for those styles because we need all styles to be successful. And so there's no hard and fast evidence about whether people marry their style opposites more than those that are like them. But here's the deal. You marry your style opposite is very exciting, but it also can be a little, yeah. You marry someone who's very much like you, very compatible, but then that can be boring. So there's challenges either way. So we want to have a value system that's the same. That's what we really want, is to have our values. Isn't that right?
One last point related to a different relationship, and that was a sibling relationship. Peggy Flynn did this training for my students a year ago, and a woman came up and said she suddenly understood why her twin sister had hated her whole life. And it was because she was a green-brown, and her sister was a red-blue, and that they had this communication style conflict from birth, but they didn't understand that was the issue. They thought it was something moral, a moral conflict.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda, and our panel. Fabulous job.